Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
If you've been listening to our podcast, you're like, man, I love what you guys are talking about. I want to build passive income through one of these 5 pillars that you're talking about, but how do I do it? Stallion, tell them. It is so easy.
So easy that we created the longest URL possible, so you may want to write this down, freecall.wealthwithoutwallstreet.com. Go to freecall.wealthwithoutwallstreet.com and you can set up your call with one of us. We're excited to talk to you. Welcome. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Your host, Joey, the Italian Stallion Murray, joined as always by Russ, the idea guy Morgan. Russ, there's never a dull moment in your house as long as Ryan's there. Am I right?
There is never a dull moment. This weekend
I love that kid.
Was just another great episode in Ryan's life of how he's trying to encourage people. So for you who've not had a chance to meet my 6-year-old son, he's never met a stranger. He loves going up and sharing the love of Christ with people. This weekend, it was no different. He's out there. He's talking to people. He's just telling them how beautiful they are, how handsome they are. It reminds me of a story from, I think it was last week, maybe it was a week before, where my wife and he are walking through the grocery store, and he's walking up to these older ladies and saying, "I think you're beautiful. You're beautiful." And they're just like, "Oh, darling, that's so sweet. I haven't been told that in 50 years, and they're like, "Who taught you how to say that?" Now, he didn't say his dad. He's like, my mom, she taught me how to say that. And so he was all encouraged by that. So they instead of walking out in the parking lot, and here comes this little teenage boy pushing the buggies back up toward the grocery store. He looks over at the guy and is like, hey, you're handsome. You're handsome. And the guy's kind of looking at him what, puzzled, and he goes, "My mom told me to say that."
He went ahead and beat him to the punch.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I'm sure Megan was literally beat red.
Ah, she loves it. Now, this story has nothing to do, though, with today's podcast.
What are you talking about? Of course it does. We're talking about Mike Kelley here. Mike Kelley is the king of taking in information, advice, if you will, from a mentor and applying it and making it happen. Just like Ryan.
I don't know about that. That's a tough transition, tough stretch, but I like where you're going there, Stallion. Mike Kelley definitely is someone, if you're close to our community, you know Mike Kelley because he's constantly posting in our Wealth Council, sharing things that he's doing with his policies, how he's buying flips or how he's buying rental properties. And he definitely is no stranger to taking in information, instruction, and then going and applying it.
Yeah, you're going to be not only inspired by Mike today, you're also going to get very practical knowledge. How many times do people ask you and I, Russ, okay, so what can I do? I've got this money in my cash value, in my policy. How can I turn it into passive income? What are some specific ways? You're going to walk away today with some very practical examples. And I think you're going to love hearing from Mike Kelley.
Yeah, if you want to kind of have more of a DIY approach to real estate and real estate investing, today is the day. He's going to give you some super hard and fast tips that you can implement. He started going through what you would ask as a landlord to interviewing the tenants that you're potentially going to bring into. And then he didn't even use the word landlord. He had different words, just the mindset of saying, no, I'm not a landlord because that could be considered in a negative way.
Right.
I'm a property manager.
Yeah.
We're not having tenants. We're having residents. I mean, he really has taken this to the next level, which I think is really cool because we all want to, figure out better ways. So, maybe the turnkey model has not been, right on high on your list. You're like, hey, I want to be a little closer to this. I want to be able to take part in this, but I don't really know all the things I should do. And I don't want to make a mistake.
But the big thing that we keep hearing and what Mike focused on today is why is he driven to do this? It's because he got to a point as a firefighter. He's still a firefighter today. And he says, I'm still trading time for money. And I got to get out of that. There's something's got to change. And so it sparked a whole journey that he's going to walk you through today. If you're interested in how to quit trading your time for money, you need to listen up.
Yep. This episode is for you. Practical advice with a lot of motivation. So thank you, Ryan, for helping us transition into Mike Kelley today. I'm not certain that was perfect, but hopefully it was a good enough story anyway. Hope it's got you smiling. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Let's listen to Mike Kelley today.
Welcome into the show. We have Mike Kelley as our guest in the podcast room. What do you think, Mike?
Man, I think it's a great day to learn.
Well,
Man, I love that about you. You are always the guy giving value, but you're always the one saying you're learning, but everybody around you is learning at the same time. That's what we love about you.
Well, thank you, Joey. It's a servant mentality.
you said you've been in the business about 15 years in the fire department, and you said, okay, I want to change this. Talk to me a little bit about what made you have that moment, that like come to Jesus moment, if you will, of I've got to do something different.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I was bored with life. I love my job. It's a great job. We help people. It's a good wage. But when you read the cash flow quadrant, you understand that there's another life out there, and it's to the right of that quadrant in the I and B. I didn't know that I was waking up to get in that I and B category then, but something about me I got hungry and wanted something different.
So you're referencing Robert Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant. And for those of you who have not read that awesome book, and it should be the
next one
the
on your
next
list.
one after Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
And the I quadrant would represent investor, and the B quadrant would represent business owner, right?
Correct. And I think everybody aspires to get in the B, but a true B is if you can leave your company for 6 months and it still creates capital. So.
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out a way to become a B because I want to leave for 6 months and come back.
Come on now. Don't leave me here. I can't do this podcast alone, man.
I can do it from a foreign country.
Yeah.
That's right. We did have David McKnight from Puerto Rico. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not moving there. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's where we all need to be. But if you've got money, then the next quadrant is the I, because everything benefits, all that stuff flows to the right side.
Yeah.
And our job really as individuals, when we talk about freedom and buying your time back, is to move from that E and S over to that I and B.
All right. Hold on. You just said something we got to make sure.
Yeah.
You said buying your time back. Okay.
How does somebody buy their time back?
Yeah. Come on.
It's you exchange money for time, or either you exchange time for money. But I look at it like this. People tell me all the time, well, I could do that and make more money. Man, I'm not after the money. I'm after the time. So if I can pay a guy, my hourly rate, so I don't have to be there that day to maybe come network with you guys or go to an event to grow my brand, then I'm going to give that guy that for an exchange. Because money's not it. It's about the time.
So that's the villain sometimes in our life, isn't it? It's the trading time for money. If we could help you avoid trading time for money, would that put you on a path toward freedom? I think the answer is yes. So you had that thought process. You said, I've got to quit trading time for money, and it's going to take action. Give us a little background to what that action was that you started taking.
Yeah, to me, it was like, okay, I've got this thought process. Now, how do I go there? And I knew that I wasn't going to 30 days into the future all of a sudden be 5 years ahead. So I'm like, okay, I'm in my early 30s. I got pretty good health. I got a lot of life ahead of me. I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. I love Nelson Nash's thing. It's like live like you live forever, or live like you only live for a day, but plan like you live forever. That forestry mentality. I've got that. But it was a trade-off. Okay, can I give up a couple years of my life for freedom for the rest of my life? And that's where the discipline come in. And that's where the vision started laying out.
So when somebody comes to you and says, but Mike, I just don't have time. I've got 4 kids, or in Joey's situation, 5 on
About
the
to
way.
have 5.
I've got this business that's booming that is requiring more and more of my time. I don't have time to come up with other ways. What do you say to that person?
I just asked a simple question: how many hours in a week? And if they can't answer that, they've not told me that. because it goes back to time blocking. You block what's most important, and that's become a discipline for me. I try every first of the month. I lay out my 30 days, my plan of action, and then I go every week Sunday night. I sit down. Okay, what do I want to accomplish for 7 days, and then I go quarterly, then yearly, then back that out. And I want to get better at that. But I look at it, what's the pain of, regret versus the pain of discipline? Which one do you want? And if you want it bad enough, you're going to find that time. I've learned that I don't watch TV anymore. I read a lot. I stay in books. Because I get 24 hours a day and I'm going to trade it for something. What are you willing to trade it for?
So would you say that was a problem early on in the first 25 years or 30 years of your life, is that you were not taking that 168 hours that are in a week and utilize them in the best possible way?
Yeah, because we didn't know. I mean, we're taught to grow up and to learn general knowledge. This time management is specialized knowledge, just like understanding how, infinite banking works, how real estate works. That's specialized knowledge. It's out there, but you've got to go be seeking it.
It's not going to just come to you.
No,
naturally.
Correct. And that's why I'm teaching my kids, I want you to be a better time manager. You're young now, but I promise you, 20 years are going to go by. If I can give you a little nugget there that's going to make you better at where I'm at in life, then I've done my job.
Well, and the time, how many times have you been at an event, Joey or Mike, and you've talked to somebody and you ask the question, hey, how's it going? How's business? And
I don't know anybody that doesn't say, man, it's just been busy.
It's been busy.
I mean, I say it.
I make that mistake all the time. I've been busy. And if we really kind of internalize, what is busyness doing for us? Is it being productive? Is it getting us closer to our objective? I think a lot of times, if we were really honest, the answer is no.
We're distracted.
So Mike, if you see this in your life, you identified it, you realize that I don't want to just be busy. I don't want to be busy toward getting time back in my life. What were some practical things that you started to do that helped you start getting more time?
I guess planning. I wish I was where I'm at, where I need to be. But I'm still trading time for money. But I know that every day that I trade time for money, it's with a purpose. Having an exit strategy. If your life's busy now, don't expect changes overnight. I mean, it takes 21 to 28 days just to change a habit. Imagine 20 years of lifestyle and you're trying to recorrect that. Great book, and I don't want to throw out it there either, but The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy talks about a 3 to 5 year plan. If you want to change your time management now, don't expect to see it, without things starting to show up 3 to 5 years into it. And we're about that 4th year where things are just starting to change. I can taste it, but I'm looking at, okay, another 3 or 4 years. Can I really be where I'm at, where I was 8, not 10 years ago? But it's having that mentality, what, enough's enough.
So it's bite size. It's not like you went out and did something drastic overnight.
No.
It was, okay, let's change this discipline.
Yeah.
Let's change this discipline. And little by little, you've seen that compound over 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and there's days you feel like, God, why am I doing this? Because I'm still trading time for money. I'm an E some days. And then when I leave that environment, I'm an I and B. And some days it's 5 steps backwards. But it's knowing, okay, I'm going to get knocked down today. But if I can just do 3 small things, I tell myself that every day. If I can do 3 small things, what are those 3 things that today that I can get 1 step back? And then if you continually to push, before you know it, it's like, man, I've went from here. Now I've got a lot going on, or things are starting to manage better.
And you do have a lot going on, by the way. I mean, you're being really humble in where you are. I know that you keep saying I'm in the E quadrant most of the time, and that's because your day job is as a firefighter. But you also get some freedom within that job. It gives you a couple of days off every day, every week, right? So that way you can actually operate in a different environment. So some of the things that you've been doing is getting into real estate and You have some properties, right? How many properties do you have now?
Yeah, we just acquired, and that was funny. I hit my goal last year. I wanted to acquire because we were in that growth phase from the flipping side of it, building capital. So if I could just do 2 rental properties this year, and I wrote it on my board and I looked at it every day and I'm like, am I going to get it? And in middle of December, they popped up in my inbox. But knowing that what I was looking for already, I bought 2 properties in December. One was occupied, that's cash flowing, and the second one should be occupied by the middle of February.
Yeah. So now you're up to 6. Is that what you said earlier?
And that's where the cash flow is starting to get better. Now my goal is this year, can I get to 10 before the end of the fiscal year? And the cash flow is going to be pretty decent there. When you start out that 1, 2, 3, you're not going to see it, but it goes back to that bite size, knowing, okay, it's a start, because we're all afraid to pull the trigger. But once we pull the trigger on that first one, it's like, can I do 2? Now can I do 4, 8, and then compounding it out.
And along with that, you started buying and flipping houses on the side. I mean, that obviously is still trading time for money to some degree. It's a different kind, right? You're not
correct.
You're not necessarily an employee. You're more on the self-employed side of
correct. That S quadrant.
Yeah.
And we're getting better. We know that, okay, when we first started, we were doing everything, but I had that mentality of how can I fire myself? All the way from the CEO to the project manager to the lead foreman, down to the general laborer. And that just over time, as I met somebody, I learned their skill set and I plugged them into my business model. And that's where we're getting to the point now where we're not even having to be on the job sites, other than just going around and making sure everybody's paid. And then we're hitting our project management benchmarks.
Yeah, I love the thing behind what you just said is the networking. So Mike Kelley, if you haven't met him, is the guy that is constantly trying to connect other people, and he becomes that connector. He becomes an attractive character, right? And so I love the fact that you have built this team. Again, it hasn't been overnight. It's not like you went out and said, okay, I'm going to do real estate, and then, oh, well, here's the team I got to hire right here. It's already here. No, you had to take the time. You've had some bumps along the way, I'm sure. Like you've had people you've had to fire along the way and replace and so on and so forth. But you've done that through networking, and that takes a lot of time that sometimes people aren't willing to do. Right?
Correct.
All right. So there's the person listening right now is probably very close to where you are. They're either operating in that E or S quadrant, and they want to move on the right side. They want to get into the professional business owner, the professional investor. And they may have a real estate rental property, but they may not. And, there's turnkey, which has its own, simplicity to it, right? You're really just buying real estate and you're handing it off to somebody else to completely manage. But that's not what you've been doing. You've been
hands-on.
You've been much more hands-on. So I want to talk a little bit about what the hands-on environment of being a landlord is, and how have you figured out how to do that correctly versus the fear I have is owning real estate and being the landlord and feeling like I've got, oh man, this person is going to just tear up my place. I'm going to constantly have maintenance issues. I'm going to be getting called during the middle of my day job and having to stop, right? That's what I start, waking up and that cold sweat. Help me understand from a person who's doing that, how you've avoided some of those areas or how you've created systems to protect yourself.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that, Russ. It's all about systems. I'm a big systems guy, and y'all know that my partner, Tom DeLosa, he's taught me well how to implement systems. Now it's the point to where can we automate it? And that's going back when I read the book, Landlording on Autopilot. That guy was a police officer. So I kind of, stepped in his shoes from a fireman standpoint.
You already resonate with them, right?
Yeah, so you kind of have that. If this guy's doing as a police officer 40, 50 hours a week, and he over time extracted himself out, how can I utilize his system? So we just, from a sheet of paper, I wrote down my expectations, what I want to see in a tenant, what I want to see in a property, how I want to collect rent, and started building out systematic approaches, basically built it before it even happened. Then when you get that property, you come in and plug and play. And that's the beauty about it. I share my information with people all the time. They're like, well, I don't know how to get started. I'm like, well, look, here's these forms I built. I've said, man, I built an entire file system on this. It's out there, but the key to it is systems. How can it perform, without you having a second guess?
Well, talk about, do you have certain things that you are just requiring of a tenant? Like, what are the non-negotiables that you've set out, like, not going to rent unless you have this.
Correct. And I create, so I don't repeat myself when I'm doing a marketing. One little nugget is, like, when I market a property, I take a bunch of phone calls and I track my data because I want to know a ratio. And in certain markets, I know that I've got to either be touched, 30 to 1, 30 to 2. And that boils it down to this many intakes that I've got to take before I get that applicant. But I get all these people, and I bring them over to my house, and I show it when I need to. I time block myself. With me being a fireman, I have that luxury. I could show on a Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Well, some people, I can't show, but on Saturday at 2. Well, that's your time. So you just set it up. So when you get them there, you have this information letter, and they start asking me questions. And I'm like, hey, look, I love to answer your questions, but look, here's the questions you're going to ask. Here's what we're looking for. If you can't meet what we're looking for, we're not your person. We'll be glad to refer you.
Wow.
But I'm not gonna lease to you. And these are not my standards, these are market standards. And really, we have 4 things, but 3 I don't deviate from. And I would say they're all important, but from most important to, I guess, least important, the first thing is no evictions. If you've had an eviction or judgment on you, I don't care. I'm not going to lease to you because that tells me somewhere in your past you didn't take care of your business.
So question on that, because I don't know the answer, is that public information or do you have to rely on them giving you the truth there?
I'm going to say yes and yes. Because I do 2 things. I do a written application and I do an online application. I use a service called, I think it's Smart Move. And if they had a judgment filed, because a lot of times you can have an eviction, what we call cash for keys. I've had to do that 1 or 2 times because it's just somebody, not because they didn't get paid, they got in a property, things got behind, but we were working it. And I said, hey, I'll give you cash, give me keys. That's technically an eviction. If they don't put it on their application, then we don't know. But when I abstract the county records, it'll show up there.
Yeah, okay.
And you got to sign on that application had you had any judgments or evictions. And it's funny, they'll put no, and I find it. And then it's like, in the garbage.
Gone.
Yeah. But I tell them up front, so there's no question. And I've literally seen it. We can't lease from this guy. And they turn around and walk out the door. And it's all
so
about.
You become the guy that they're like, okay, yeah, if you're going to go get a house from Mike Kelley, you better be on the up and up.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's I use the law of scarcity. One, they see all these other people competing against to do business with me. And 2, if they don't meet these qualifications, then they're going down the street for the next sucker that's, hey, I'm going to take cash right here today.
Yeah.
So that's step 1. And we just kind of work them down into a funnel. The second thing is you got to have verified income. I got to be able to look at your income. And then outside of that, I don't like to see a change in jobs. Some of my tenants work at the grocery stores, and they're in and out of jobs. That tells me that the income is not stable.
Right.
Because we know this, rental property performs off cash flow.
Yeah.
You've got to take it in, pass to you, pay off, and you keep the rest.
Which is interesting when you need predictability in that. We talk about life insurance companies and why they are so stable, why they have been around 150 years. Is because the things that they put their money in create predictable streams of income. They don't put it in the stock market because it's unpredictable.
There's no volatility there.
That if it doesn't come back, they can't meet their obligations, which that's what we are as landlords. We're basically operating as this insurance company, meaning we need predictable streams of income because we have cash flow demands from our personal finances that we have to meet.
Correct. And that's a follow-up that I have when I have a sit-down with them about the setting the expectations. So we put on that piece of paper, you got to have predictable income. If you're W-2, we put at least 90 days pay statements. If you're self-employed, we'll still look at it, but it's 2 years tax returns. So I'm putting all these demands out front. I'm making you work to work with me. So the further you come to me, the further that I'm going to come to you. It's not like, I don't mean this the wrong way. You need me more than I need you.
Right.
I'm looking for that certain person. And when I see you, I know you.
Right.
And it's,
because you as you just said, and this goes into, I mean, whether you're renting property or you're hiring an employee. I had this, it was told to me a long time ago, when you're looking for an employee, you need to get 50 applications before you start doing interviews. That's kind of what you're doing as a landlord. You're saying, I need 30 applications before I start really digging into these individuals, because I know that I'm going to put these sort of criteria out, and so many are going to not meet my basic requirements.
And that goes back to even the marketing plan. I've got a 3-step system of how to market. I just don't put a house out there $650 a month, 3-bed, 1-bath. I create that story. Why do you want this property? So hopefully that person that's just filtering through, I'm getting them to stop at my storefront, that they're a good-looking tenant or prospect. They're not just looking to park their butt for 2 or 3 months. So it already starts in there, and I even put the expectations here, no evictions, background and income check. So we go from no evictions to verified income, and then from there I even throw a ratio out, 3 to 1. I'm a big numbers guy, 3 to 1. And I always go off gross, and then I'll dig into the DTI, debt to income. And Joe, you kind of understand this going back from the mortgage industry. But so most of my properties, and I'll tell you this, the median average in Birmingham is $710 a month. That's how I determine my rent rates.
That's what the average rent rate is, $710 a month?
$710 a month, because I don't deal in the Class Ds, which are in the 4 and 5s. I stay in C's and B's. I'm not an A guy just because I don't like the appreciation on cash flow. But between 575 and 725, the average that you can determine is 710 in Birmingham. And most of my rents are 650 to 675. And my B's are between 8 and 9. But so I just take 700, simple math, times 3, that's $2,100 a month.
Right.
If you're making $2,100, that's low. I'd love to see you 4, 5, 6. If you're 24 to 3,000, just a quick number, looking at that, hey, you're a potential prospect.
Right.
So you've already met this, and this. Because I tell people all the time, well, man, I'm on Social Security to get $800 a month. It's guaranteed. I can pay the rent. I'm like, well, then I flip the script. How you going to eat?
Yeah, you go back to, I mean, we talked about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? What's at the very bottom? It's food. It's not shelter. It's food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because in this business, we understand that the rent man gets paid first because it's food, water, and shelter. And that's why I love investing in real estate. It's you're investing in shelter because you're providing a service.
Right.
So when you provide that service, you're getting exchange in value for $1. But once we get them through that, then I tell them, okay, now here's the written application. Then I charge $50. And then I'm going to turn around and then I pay an online service. I put them in, and it does all their back, or I guess really the credit check.
Okay.
I put parameters on that. 500 is my demarcation line. If you're below that, go on down the street. You've got to work on your credit.
Yeah. How many below 500 credit scores are out there?
It's pitiful, but they tell me I'm working on it. I said, we'll continue to work, but I'm not your guy.
Right.
We'd love to refer you.
Yeah.
So that just kicks them out. So really what I'll usually see is I love to see 550 and above. Anytime I get 600, that's almost a golden egg.
You're kind of doing a little jig whenever you see that.
Yeah,
600.
when you get 3 times the income, you've got a good stable job, you've got 600, then it's just landlord verification.
That's your MVP, your most valuable payer, right?
Yes, I love that. I'm gonna use that, my MVP, most valuable payer. So those right there, I'm trying to take out the uncertainty because I don't have this relationship yet. Because it's going to take about 90 days once you sign a lease to have a relationship with your tenant. That's the whole goal, is to build the relationship, so you don't get these crazy phone calls. They're not killing their house. You're not killing your property. You're there to provide a house for them to create a home. That's my number one goal. Provide a service for them to create a home and take care of their family.
Well, if you think about that, taking your steps, you're trying to determine, have they ever been evicted before, right? That's already, are they a bad character?
Yeah.
Have they been paying their bills, right? That when you talked about their credit scores, And I realize there's things that happen in our life that can affect our credit scores. But once you get down to the 500s and below, that's not like, man, I missed, paying I got sick and I couldn't pay this. But when you start getting to that level, you've been a repeat offender.
You're typically doing work to get down that level.
You're trying to mess up. And then if you don't have income, right? If you don't have a job, then how are you going to be able to pay me? You're going to become a repeat offender. So when you can kind of get that triple threat, as you're talking about there, that MVP status, what your tenant, you have that predictable income, that cash flow coming to you because you got someone who meets the basic criteria.
Exactly. And that goes back, it's part of my business model in that one section it's probably 3 pages of how to find a tenant, to what to look for. And then the last and most important is landlord verification. I tell them, I say, I want to speak with 2 landlords in the last 7 years. And this is where I really get you. So I got a gold nugget I'll share with you is sometimes they'll put their best friend or uncle. Well, I'll call over there and I'll just say, hey, I've got,
You mean people aren't honest on that stuff?
It's funny in this business how you learn real quick.
Come on.
I heard from a good friend of mine. He says, when it comes to investments, verify it. If your mom says she loves you, verify it.
Exactly. Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. And that's how you got to be in this business. I was like, hey, look, I trust you, but I just put it back on. I'm like, hey, we don't have a relationship there, so we're going to have to both work on that. I don't expect you to trust me because in this business, there's slumlords. I'm a property manager.
Right.
I don't even use that vernacular of landlording unless we're talking. I use property manager. I don't even call you a tenant. I call you a resident.
Right. That's good.
But it's just that flipping mindset. So when I call over there, I go, hey, I just got Jane or John Doe over here on an application. How do you know this person? And then I shut up, and the first person that speaks loses.
And so you've had somebody like, oh, yeah, that's my nephew.
Yeah. And click. Ain't your landlord. You just lied to me in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the wrong way to start.
Yeah, and absolutely. And then another quick tip is I cross-reference. So if they list a single-family residence, I go check the tax assessment. So if it's different from there, then I cross-reference that person. And if they have multiple properties, that's another networking thing. I've networked with other landlords. So I'm like, okay, they listed that. That guy over there's got 10 properties. He's probably the landlord. Let's call him up. And then I pull out my other piece of paper. I've got 10 questions on a landlord verification that I'll work through, and how I got those with people would call me about people leasing to me. And I'm like, hey, let's ask the same questions. Did they pay on time? Did they take care of the property? Were they easy to work with? Were they a problem? And if you answer those yes, yes, and yes, then I'm going to pre-approve you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about what I'm hearing here is that these are all systems that you're personally doing today, but they're easily transferable.
Yeah.
Right? You can easily hire somebody to do everything that you've talked about because you've built the system.
Correct.
So that's moving you into that owner and that investor, true investor status.
Correct. Because I think within 3, maybe 5 years, I want to own my own property management company because we see so much value that's not given to the owner and the tenant. And it's being that middleman, that arbitrage. So if I can create my systems here and train people, then I can move up into that B. But I'm not quite there yet. I'm still trading that time for money landlording, but I know that I have an end focus.
Yeah. So you got into being able to do real estate, and I know you're a big advocate of using life insurance policies to help you finance these deals. And there's people on here listening, and they have cash. They've been building up their tier 1 capital and cash value, and they're looking for ways to put it into things that they can control. Which I would say, whenever you are being a property manager as you are, that's going to be that tier 2 asset where it's something that you can control because you can pick who the tenant is in the property. You can pick the property that you're buying, making sure you're buying it right. All of those things become very predictable, very in realm of control. Just for some kind of application for those who listen, how did you kind of take those steps to start using your cash values to buying properties?
Almost there yet. Because eventually I want to take my cash values and then replace the bank over there. I'm using my infinite banking policies right now on the short-term basis with my fix and flips.
Okay.
Move money in, move money out. Now, after I build that over, I want to take all my policies then pay the bank off who's earning that interest, and then they'll pay my bank back and continue to grow my egg. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
on that?
So in your rental property, you're still using the traditional banks, but inside your fix and flips is where you're
Yes,
using.
that's where I'm at now.
Okay.
I'm still in that capital accumulation phase because I use the Burr model. I use a line of credit, or I use other people's money. I've done life insurance policies before. I'll go out and buy a rental and say, hey, I'll give it back to you in 6 months. It usually takes me 90 to 120 days. I'll fix it, rent it, and for you all out there, the Burrs: buy, rent, rehab, refinance. Good model. You can use it with your policy or the bank. So I buy that either with someone's policy or my line of credit, rent it up. Then I take a package with a bank that I have a relationship with and go, hey, I need you to make me whole again. I don't like doing that because I know what infinite banking is about.
Yeah.
I want to get to where I'm my own banker. And
It's a Band-Aid, though.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's a bridge.
Totally understandable.
Until I get there. So the bank is just nothing more than a checking account. We don't even have to use the banks because it goes back to control. When we got someone's policy, it's just about a relationship and showing them the numbers that it works. Like, dude, you're going to be in first position at 60% loan to value. I'm going to fix it up. And if I walk away, you get 40% equity plus your policy back.
Yeah.
Let's do that all day long.
Right.
So walk back through that because I'm a slow learner. I went to Auburn. And
I love Auburn. War Eagle.
Yeah, that puts me in a position that sometimes is, more prestigious in certain ways and not in others. Well, but I may have missed some of the math behind that. So talk me through an example. Just use a typical property that you would have used the Burr method, but put numbers to it if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. And Russ, you know this, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So there's nothing wrong with being slow there. So I like it. Yeah, we'll use, this was the prototypical Burr property. Now, I got a little bit humbled last year on it because I bought it, had to put a sewer line in and replace the HVAC. I knew that going in, but strictly from mathematical theory, this thing absolutely smoked. But it took me about 6 months to buy it because the seller was up here. And I wasn't trying to beat them down. I just knew that I needed to be here to Burr it. Loan to value on this property is $70,000. And I probably could. That's a sellable market, so I could probably.
Well, let me hold you. 70,000 is the price that you bought it for?
I wouldn't want to buy it because that was 100%.
So the value of the property was $70,000, and you were trying to buy it at what?
I wanted it in at 30. I ended up buying it at 35, but the seller was at 50.
Okay.
So it was creating that extra.
I got you. Okay. I'm just trying to follow you.
Yes. So I knew already the math on it. I knew this was $800-900 a month rents in a very good C+ neighborhood. And I loved the neighborhood. So I knew I wanted it, but I wasn't going to buy it on emotion. I was going to buy it on rational. So just looking at 70, my commercial lender's 80% loan to value, 80% of 70 is 56,000, right?
Right.
Then I just reduce out my second closing cost. Then the rehab, I wanted to put about 10,000 in it. So I was at 56, then 46, and then I might borrow out another 5. I was like at 40,000, and I offered them 30.
All right, I'm going to press pause here just for a second because not everybody's following. Not everybody's catching up. I'm going to explain this for Joey. He went to Montevallo.
Okay.
I don't even have a football team, so you know.
Remember, I'm the mortgage guy. Okay, come on. I've been with him the whole time.
So you said the property's value roughly $70,000, but if part of the Burr is to refinance to get your cash back out of it, and the bank's only going to refinance the property, I'm assuming at 80%. What
they appraise it at, and that's the catchy part, the caveat to single family. Now with commercial, your valuation's predicated on net operating income and cap rates.
Right. Yeah.
That's a different model, different discussion.
Yeah. So you're saying you knew that you had that the amount of money the bank was going to give you back was only going to be up to $56,000 because that was 80% of 70. So when you figured in, okay, I got to put in $10,000. Okay, now I'm down to 46
for repairs.
Yeah,
for repairs, for renovations, and then there's some closing costs in there. You're going down from that. Well, how much money do you want to make off of having to put in $10,000, right? I'm assuming that's what you're doing. So you're saying I need to buy it for 35 to be able to make the difference between 35 and 46.
Yeah. Now on the Burr, I'm not looking to make money. I'm looking to be made whole again, so I can get that cash flow.
Okay.
But that also goes back to I know that I can't go beyond 55 because of the rent rates. If you go beyond that, then you're not going to cash flow correctly. So, but with this particular model, I knew there was 800 rents, and I didn't need to go all in beyond 50, so we just backed it out, and it bird perfect. I bought it for 35, put 10 in it, went to the bank with a package deal, and they gave me 45,000 back.
So then how does that cash flow happen every month? What's the net cash flow
after
on a deal
everything?
like that?
Probably 175.
Okay, but what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure is clear, is that you no longer have a dollar in that property.
No, I transferred it.
Right. So you've bought it, you rehabbed it, you refinanced it. It's renting. It's $175 of positive cash flow, and just for rate of returns, that's an infinite rate of return because you got zero money in the property at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that is super powerful. That is super powerful. Now you could use your policy to have put in the initial investment on that. In some cases, you may use the line of credit from the bank to do that. But that's just kind of a practical, everyday scenario that you guys can run across, and you're using to build this passive income.
Correct, and that's the whole key. Or on the other side, that flip model where we take somebody's policy, we move it in, and we give them a predetermined interest rate. We try to at least go beyond double what you're paying. If you're getting 5 on your policy, we try to give you 12, and sometimes to help you out, we may give you points,
right,
to put back in your policy.
So that is incredible to hear how the deals are put together, how you're utilizing infinite banking, and how this is really, you've really transformed your life at this point. You're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
You're in process, which is why we wanted to interview you, because our clients are asking for practical uses of what they have. They've started a policy or multiple policies. They're saying, okay, I got cash. What do I do now? And so just hearing your story, I think it inspires me, one, to get up and be disciplined and do the small things that are going to affect major change 3 to 5 and plus years from now. So Mike, I can't thank you enough for being here. I know Russ and I have thoroughly enjoyed hearing your story, and hopefully it inspires other people to take steps to make those changes and adjustments for our own life. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll have to have you on again another time.
No, and Joey, thank you. When I got the text the other day, man, I was super humbled because you guys, I love y'all to death. Y'all have taught me so much. You've shared people with me, and you've helped grow our network, our business, and connected us. And that's what it's about. It's give and take, and I appreciate that too. And it's just a privilege to be here to share my story. And anyone out there that's got any questions or don't know what to do or their thought process, feel like we've done some hard work, we've taken our lumps. So let us share that with you. I don't mind at all. The information's out there. It's just you got to find it. That's people and books.
Well, you mind if we put your email out there for people?
No, not at all. It's you may give it to you?
Sure.
Yeah, it's I can be reached at smoke, that's SMOKE .9673@gmail.com. And if you'll just put in the subject heading Wealth Without Wall Street or WWWS, then I know that, okay, this is coming from that podcast or our group. We would love to share with you, and any questions on the Wealth Council.
And by the way, his email, the smoke, has to do with him being a firefighter, not because he smokes cigarettes or something. So anyway, all right. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast today. Join us next time. Thanks for being here.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.